Hello students, welcome to Social Science. I am Sakthivel Murugan, Social Science teacher. In this session, part 1, History Unit 5, we are going to learn the classical world. Introduction. Greece, the Hellenic world. Greeks' victory over Persians, democracy in Hellenic Greece, Athenian democracy, Pericles, a great leader. These are the topic we are going to learn in this part. Introduction. When America, Australia and Africa remained outside the mainstream of world history, civilization blossomed in scattered areas of the landmass of Europe and Asia known as Eurasia. Some of them soon reached the classical stage. When the classical era was at its height, a chain of empires from Rome to Persia to Peshawar began to emerge. The expansion of major civilization eliminated the geographical gap and paved the way for inter-regional trade contacts and cultural exchange. This led to the transmission of ideas, technology, and art, the diffusion of the great religions of the world beginning with Buddhism and later continuing with Christianity and Islam can be understood in this context. Greece, the Hellenic world. Until 8th century BC, Greece was not different from the rest of the world. People from illiterate, craft specialization was primitive and life was difficult. With the exception of Sparta, agriculture was limited by the mountainous terrain. However, the Greeks succeeded in founding colonies along the coast that helped them earn revenue. Through trade. As a result, by the 6th century BC, Greece turned into a network of city-states. Acropolis, a fortified city of ancient Greeks on a hill in Athens, is an illustrative example of their advancement. Though the city-states fought each other, they were bound together by trade, by a common alphabet, similar religious practices and festivals. The illustrious examples for the last one was the Olympic festival of sports and games. The ruling class in Greece controlled the land. Slaves cultivated the land. Greek writers and philosophers saw the ownership of slaves as essential to a civilized life. Aristotle compared the master and slave relationship to that of husband and wife and father and children. Greeks' victory over Persians. King Darius, who was heading a great empire in Persia, decided to conquer the Greek city-states. The first Persian attack on Greece failed. This was due to the fact that the Persian army suffered from disease and lack of food during its march. Therefore, in planning the second attack, the Persians avoided the land route and came by sea. The Greeks or Hellenes fought patriotically and defeated the Persian army at Marathon in 490 BC. Xerxes. King Darius' successor conducted another expedition. Joined by Spartans this time, the Athenians persisted in their resistance and in the final battle fought in Salamis, Persian ships were destroyed. Disheartened, Xerxes returned to Persia without achieving his end. Democracy in Hellenistic Greece. When the Greek city-states first emerged, they still carried the legacy of the past. The rulers came from lines of traditional chieftains. Those who grew rich from expansion of trade resented the privileges enjoyed by the old ruling families. In the age of Tiran, 6th centuries to 4th century BC, proved to be a period of urban development with new buildings and enormous temples such as Olympian Zeus at Athens. Athenian democracy. In Athens, the pressure from below resulted in the replacement of both oligarchy and tyranny by democracy. The lawmaking power in Athens was vested in an assembly open to all free men. Judges and lower officials were chosen by lords. This arrangement was resented by the upper classes who considered democracy to be the rule of the mob. The Persian danger had united the Greeks. When this danger was removed, they started quarreling again. The history of many Greek city-states was one of continual struggles by the rich landowners against democracy. The only exception was Athens, where democracy survived for about 200 years. We know very well about democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people, the first definition given by the former president of America, Abraham Lincoln. The word democracy literacy means rule of the people. In reality, it excluded slaves, women, and non-residents known as metics. Pericles. Athens had a great leader, Pericles, who held power for 30 years. During his rule, Athens and Sparta were continuously at war with each other. This war is known as the Peloponnesian War. Athens, despite hostility and disturbance from Sparta, became a noble city with magnificent buildings. There were great artists and great thinkers. Historians therefore call this age the age of Pericles. The Athens government after Pericles did not like Socrates was of finding truth. In a trial, Socrates was accused of refusing to accept the gods recognized by the state and corrupting the youth. The jury found Socrates guilty and sentenced him to die by drinking hemlock, that a poison. Yes, students, in this part we elaborately learn about the Greece, the Hellenic world, the great leader Pericles also. We will continue the same in the next part. Welcome to Social Science. I am Sakthivel Murugan, Social Science teacher. History, Unit 5, Part 2, the Classical World. In this part, we are going to learn Rome, the Hellenistic world, beginning of Hellenistic civilization, Roman Republic, class war between patricians and plebeians, transfer of power from consuls to emperor, slave revolts, establishment of principate. Principate mean the period starting from Augustus is known as Principate. Society under Principate. Punic Wars and the emergence of Imperial Roman Empire. External invasions and the decline of Roman Empire. Yes, let us start to learn part 2. Rome, the Hellenistic world, beginning of Hellenistic civilization. The Greek city-states did not have an elaborate bureaucracy. They were therefore able to show a greater dynamism. Under Alexander the Great, the Greeks were able to establish a kingdom in Macedonia. This kingdom succeeded in annexing two historic empires of Egypt and the Middle East. But the entire period of Alexander's reign was spent on wars. Cultural development that took place rapidly after Alexander's death, that is 323 BC, is called Hellenistic civilization. The Greek school of science, mathematics, and philosophy reached its peak in the Greek Egyptian city of Alexandria. Euclid, who formulated the basic theorems of geometry, Erasmus, who accurately calculated the diameter of the earth, and Hipparchus, the founder of trigonometry, were all products of this age. Ptolemy built on Hipparchus' ideas and later developed a model of motion of the planets and stars. Roman Republic. In the beginning, Roman was a society of agriculturists organized through lineages. Out of this development, a hereditary ruling class, Roman people were divided into two classes: patricians, that means consist of rich landlords, and plebeians, that means a common citizen of that state. Rome was strategically located in the crisscrossing trade routes cutting north-south and east-west. Taxes on passing traders added to the revenue derived from agriculture. By the late 6th century BC, Rome developed into a prosperous town. Class war between patricians and plebeians. Prisoners of war were enslaved in Rome. Thus, Rome produced a new labor force for the rich to exploit. Pig landholders bought slaves cheaply and used them to cultivate their estates. The slave population grew, and by the 1st century BC, there were 2 million slaves when the total strength of the free population was 3.25 million. Slave labor led to the impoverishment of free labor. Many poor persons had to abandon their children, who also ended up in the slave markets. The conflict between plebeians and patricians became bloodier. A major source of revenue to the Roman state was slave trade in those days. The island of Delos became a great slave market. Tiberius Gracchus and Carius Gracchus, though patricians, voiced their opinion in favor of the poor peasants. As the peasants supported their program, the senators, shocked by this development, murdered both of them. The martyrdom of the Gracchus brothers played a decisive role in the transformation of the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. Transfer of power from consuls to emperor. When Marius became consul with the support of Eutyches, he made an attempt to push through a land distribution bill in the Senate. This led to the violence. The allies of Marius were killed. This resulted in a civil war between the followers of Marius and Sulla. After expelling Marius, Sulla reigned for 3 years as a virtual dictator. He was killed and succeeded by Cinna, and Catalina. Slave revolts. There were more slave revolts in Rome than in Greece. The revolt of Spartacus was the most famous. It began in 73 BC, involving about 70,000 slaves. The revolt threatened the power in Rome. Ultimately, Spartacus was killed and the revolt crushed. 6,000 of the followers of Spartacus were executed. Establishment of Principate. The civil wars over social issues ended only to be replaced by civil wars between generals. Marius and Cinna against Sulla, Pompey against Julius Caesar. After Caesar's death, Brutus and Cassius against Mark Antony and Octavian, and finally Octavian against Mark Antony. The rich, old and new alike felt that allowing Octavian, now called Augustus, to establish a de facto monarchy was the only way to re-establish political stability. The period starting from Augustus is known as Principate. Augustus called himself imperator, equivalent to English word emperor. Society under Principate. During the period of Principate, the imperial ruling class became far more prosperous than under the Republic. The period witnessed a great influx of luxury goods such as silk, spices, and gems from the East. Cities were built on a grand scale with temples, theatres, stadia, and colosseum, gymnasia, aqueducts, paths, and markets. The rich people distracted the attention of the poor by organizing games and contests in circuses where the gladiators were forced to fight and kill each other. The most distinguished writers of the Augustan period brought glory to the empire. Pliny the Elder completed a voluminous encyclopedia of science. He called it natural history. Seneca was another well-known author of an encyclopedia of science. Heroes in his odes developed a philosophy that combined Epicurean justification of pleasure with stoic bravery in the face of trouble. Livy was more prose stylist than a historian. The best known historian was Tacitus. Virgil's another writer, Aeneid glorified Roman imperialism. The Roman law attained its highest stage of development during the Principate. After the death of Augustus in 14 AD, Rome had few enlightened and capable rulers, with the exceptions of Trajan, Antonius Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. All others were tyrants. Marcus Aurelius stands apart from all others. As a philosopher, he authored many books. He was the first Roman emperor to send an embassy to China and establish contact with an Asian power. Hannibal, Punic Wars, and the emergence of Imperial Roman Empire. As Rome was growing in Italy, Carthage was growing in power in North Africa. The Carthaginians were the descendants of the Phoenicians who excelled in seafaring and trade. Rome and Carthage united to drive out the Greeks. Thereafter, Carthage took Sicily and threatened the very existence of the Roman state. The three wars fought between them are called Punic Wars. Carthage sent a general named Hannibal He defeated the Roman army and made a great part of Italy a desert. Fabius, who led the Romans, did not give up. In the Second Punic War, Fabius confronted Hannibal and defeated him in the Battle of Zama. Pursued by the Roman army, Hannibal ended his life with poisoning himself. The Third Punic War was declared on the Carthaginians by Rome. After the defeat and destruction of the Carthage in this war, Rome emerged as an unrivaled power in the Western world. External invasion and the decline of Roman Empire. The empire facing threats from barbarians, incursions depended on expensive mercenary armies. In 330, the center of the empire moved from Italy to the Greek-speaking city of Byzantium. But it was difficult to rule the western part from such a distance. In 410 AD, the Count Alaric led his forces to sack Rome. The Frank Clovis took control of Gaul. The Ostrogoth Theodoric proclaimed himself the emperor of Rome. The final onslaught came from Vandals. In 476 AD, disgusted by the rule of Emperor Romulus Augustus, the Roman army led by Odovacar revolted and deposed him. This marked the end of Western Roman Empire. Welcome to Social Science. I am Sakthivel Murugan, Social Science teacher, History Unit 5, Part 3, the Classical World. In this part, we are going to learn empire building in East Asia, that is in China, fall of Qin dynasty, Han dynasty and expansion of Chinese territories. Next, we are going to learn about the rise of Christianity, Saint Sophia Cathedral. Finally, we are going to learn about Byzantium. Then we are going to recap about the full lesson of the classical world. Yes, let us start part 3. Empire building in East Asia. China fall of Qin dynasty Wang Cheng, popularly known as Shi Huang Ti, that means the first emperor, entered the age of warring states in China. He crushed all local rulers and established a strong central government in China. However, uprisings of the peasantry, unlike in other cultures, occurred again and again in China. Such uprisings led to the collapse of Qin dynasty. This is the Silk Route. The trade started in China. They had a contact with India and Western countries also. Han dynasty and expansion of Chinese territories. Han dynasty, founded by Liu Pang, flourished for 400 years. Their capital was Chang'an. The most popular and powerful ruler was Wu Ti. His general succeeded in driving away the Huns in the north. Thus, the Khan Empire once again threw open the Silk Road for trade activities. A large export trade, mainly in silk, reached as far as the Roman Empire. In the north, artisans and herders of rival barbarians dynasties brought in new techniques like the methods of harnessing horses, use of saddle and stirrup, techniques of building bridges and mountain roads, and seafaring. Such innovations made Han Empire prosperous. At the beginning of the Christian era, the Khan Empire rivaled that of Rome in size and wealth. Buddhism came to China from India during the reign of Khan dynasty. With Buddhism came the influence of Indian art to China, and from China this spread to Korea, and from that to Japan. Some of the Buddhist art of the time showed the impact of Hellenistic styles. Khan emperors found it extremely difficult to control the big landowners. So, for some decades of consolidation, China saw the emergence of several rival kingdoms marked by civil wars in North China. People abandoned their homes and farms and fled from there to the Yangtze region and beyond. The period after Khan ruled witnessed political instability across the country. Rise of Christianity. After a brief period of glory in the days of David and Solomon, the Jewish people had a great fall and experienced extreme hardship. While spreading out all over the Roman Empire and elsewhere, they hoped that the Messiah would arrive to restore their Christian glory. Initially, they laid much hopes on Jesus. Jesus was against the rich and the hypocrites and contemned certain observance and ceremonials. This was not to the liking of the priest, who turned against Jesus and handed him over to the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. Looked upon as political rebel by the Roman authorities, Jesus was tried and crucified. After Jesus' crucifixion, Saint Paul started spreading the Christian doctrine. Paul succeeded in his effort and Christianity gradually spread. Romans were prepared to tolerate Christianity, but the refusal of the Christians to pay respect to the emperor's image was viewed as political treason. It led to the persecution of Christians. Their property was confiscated and they were thrown to the lions. Yet the Roman Empire did not succeed in suppressing Christianity. One of the Roman emperor, Constantine, himself became a Christian. Christianity thus became the official religion of the empire. Saint Sophia Cathedral. Saint Sophia Cathedral was built in mid-6th century AD, the most magnificent building in Europe at that time. It was known for its innovative architectural techniques. This cathedral was turned into mosque by Ottoman Turks when they captured Constantinople. Byzantium. The Byzantine emperor who ruled from the city of Constantinople for about 1000 years called themselves Romans, but their language was Greek. The splendor of Constantinople, with its luxurious royal palaces, its libraries, its scholars, familiar with the writings of Greeks and Romans, and its fascinating St. Sophia Cathedral are the legacies they have left behind. However, in terms of development of science and technology, there was no progress during this period. The economies of empire provinces were in the hands of large local landlords. The small persons always lived on a edge of poverty. The fundamental weakness of Byzantine civilization stood exposed when the Principate of Fourth Crusade pillaged it and ruled it. The Tartaric Empire finally fell to Ottoman Turks in 1453. Yes, students, the lesson is over. Finally, we are going to recap of this entire lesson, the classical world. The Greeks fought patriotically and repulsed the invasions of Persians. Athens rejected monarchy and oligarchy and opted for democracy. At present, most of the countries in the world following the system of government that is democracy. During the reign of Pericles, Athens was in a higher plane of civilization. After the death of Alexander, science, mathematics, and philosophy reached its peak in the Greek Egyptian city of Alexandria, heralding a new Hellenistic era. By the late 6th century BC, Rome became prosperous and developed into republic. Class wars between patricians and plebeians and slave revolt led to emergence of Rome as an empire. The period of Principate in general and Augustus in particular witnessed rich contribution of Romans to science, engineering, architecture, and sculptures. Internal crisis and invasion of Franks, Goths, and Vandals ended the Roman Empire. Romans carried on their civilization in the east with Constantinople as capital. This is called Byzantine civilization. Christianity became a state religion of Byzantium and began to spread in Europe. Yes, I hope you maybe understand the lesson that is a classical world. Thank you.